Today we're diving deep into how art reflects the impact of war and not just the battles themselves.
Mm,
We're looking at the scars war leaves
mm,
behind on
mm.
individuals and societies, those things that linger long after the fighting stops. And to really understand this, we're focusing on one painting in particular,
Okay.
Gassed by John Singer Sargent.
It's a fascinating choice
Yeah.
because, you know, most people know Sargent for his elegant portraits,
Right.
but Gast is something else entirely.
Completely.
It comes from his firsthand experience in World War I
Right.
and tackles a subject that's far more raw and
Yeah.
unsettling.
You've mentioned the line of blindfolded soldiers.
Hmm.
What strikes you most about their depiction?
Well, I think what immediately grabs you is their vulnerability.
Right.
They're lined up, stumbling forward, completely reliant on each other.
Yeah.
To navigate this desolate landscape,
Huh?
Sargent doesn't show us the actual gassing the moment of attack. Instead, he focuses on the aftermath, this haunting procession of men who have been robbed of their sight, quite literally,
Yeah.
but also perhaps their sense of direction, their
No,
future.
and that empty background, it really adds to that feeling of isolation, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's as if the world itself has been emptied out by war. There's no comfort, no refuge in sight. And the way Sargent uses color intensifies this feeling. His palette here is strikingly different from his portrait work.
Okay.
Instead of vibrant hues and rich details, we see these muted, almost muddy tones. It's as if the color itself has been drained away,
Oh.
reflecting the bleakness of the scene.
It's interesting that you point out that difference in his style. It
Yeah.
feels almost deliberate. Like
Yeah.
he's using this departure from his usual approach
Right.
to really underscore the gravity of the subject matter.
Right, it's not a romanticized view of war.
No. And those blindfolds, they're such a powerful symbol.
Yeah.
They obviously represent the physical blindness caused by the gas attack, but they seem to suggest a deeper kind of blindness as well.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They represent a loss of vision in a broader sense,
Mm-hmm.
a loss of hope, purpose, maybe even a future.
Right.
These men are walking towards an unknown fate, completely at the mercy of forces beyond their control.
And then there are those scattered figures in the background,
Right.
almost like Sargent saying the suffering is everywhere. There's no escape from it.
You're right, he's showing us the pervasiveness of war's impact.
Yeah.
It touches every corner of the canvas, just as it touches every aspect of human life.
Mm.
And this theme, this idea of war as a subject for art, it isn't unique to Sargent.
No, not at all. Throughout history, artists have used their work to grapple with the horrors and complexities of war.
Yeah,
I mean, we see it in everything from medieval battle scenes to Picasso's Guernica,
right.
which depicts the bombing of a Basque town during the Spanish Civil War.
And Picasso's not alone. Goya's The 3rd of May, 1808, is another powerful example.
Yeah.
It shows the execution of Spanish civilians by French soldiers during the Napoleonic Wars.
Oh.
The scene is brutal, chaotic, and the expressions on the faces of the condemned are just unforgettable.
And then there's Otto Dix, whose own experiences as a soldier in World War I led him to create this harrowing series of paintings called The War.
Right.
They're incredibly graphic and disturbing,
Yeah,
but they offer this unflinching look at the psychological and physical toll
exactly.
that war takes on soldiers.
What's interesting is that while some artworks celebrate military victories like those grand portraits of Napoleon,
Right.
others force us to look at the human cost,
Yeah.
the broken bodies and spirits left behind.
And with Gast, it's not just about the physical wounds, right?
No.
Sargent seems to be digging deeper, showing us the internal scars, the psychological trauma that these soldiers carry.
Exactly. He's asking us to consider the invisible wounds of war, the nightmares, the guilt, the shattered sense of self that can linger long after the fighting is over.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not just the soldiers who bear these wounds. Think about the families torn apart, the communities shattered, the psychological toll that ripples through generations.
Mm-hmm.
War leaves its mark on the very fabric of society.
It's like this echo that reverberates outwards, changing the course of everything it touches, and it's not just reflected in art.
Right.
We see these same themes explored in literature, poetry, music.
Yeah?
I mean, think about Wilfred Owen's war poems, those incredibly raw and visceral accounts of trench warfare.
Absolutely. His work captures the sheer terror and brutality of war, the way it
Mhm.
can strip away any sense of humanity. And Eric Maria remarks, all quiet on the Western Front.
Right.
That's another powerful example.
Yeah.
It really delves into the psychological impact of war on young soldiers, the disillusionment, the loss of innocence.
It feels like art in all its forms becomes this collective memory, a way for us to process the trauma and attempt to understand the true human cost of conflict.
You're right, it's about remembering, but it's also about learning, recognizing the warning signs, understanding the human impulses that can lead to war in the first place.
Because Gast isn't just a painting about soldiers as victims.
Right.
It's a statement about humanity's vulnerability in the face of conflict.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder that war dehumanizes everyone involved,
Yeah.
the perpetrators as well as the victims.
And what strikes me is how Sargent manages to convey so much emotion with a seemingly simple composition.
Yeah,
It's not overly graphic or sensationalized, but it's incredibly impactful.
that's the power of restraint. He doesn't need to show us blood and gore to make us feel the way of war. He focuses on the faces, the postures, the sheer exhaustion of these men, and it's enough Sargent's use of chiaroscuro with its stark contrasts of light and shadow
Right.
further emphasizes their isolation. It's as if they're trapped in this world of darkness and pain.
It's almost like he's inviting us to step into the painting, to feel the dust under our feet, the heavy air, the despair that hangs over the scene.
And that's what great art does. It transcends time and space, connecting us to experiences we may never have personally lived through.
It makes us confront uncomfortable truths, challenge our assumptions, and forces us to ask ourselves, what can we do to prevent this from happening again?
That's where the conversation needs to go.
Mm.
How can art like Gast be a catalyst for dialogue, for understanding, for action?
It's a call to empathy, a reminder that peace is fragile, something we have to actively work towards. Because if we fail to learn from the past, we're doomed to repeat it, and that's a cycle we can't afford to perpetuate.
It's a sobering thought, but, looking at Gast,
Yeah,
there's also a sense of resilience, a flicker of hope amidst the darkness.
you're right. There's this quiet strength that way those soldiers support each other.
Yeah.
Even in their blindness, they're still standing, still moving forward together.
And that's what gives me hope that even amidst the wreckage, there's this spark of humanity
Yeah.
that refuses to be extinguished.
It's like Gast is both a warning and a testament. A warning about the horrors of war, but also a testament to our capacity for empathy, for healing, for rebuilding.
And it reminds us that art has the power to move us, to challenge us, to inspire us, to create a better world.
So we've explored the impact of war on individuals and societies. What role do you think art can play in fostering empathy and promoting peace in our own lives? What can we as viewers do to make a difference?
I think it starts with awareness. Art like Gast can open our eyes to realities we might otherwise ignore.
Right.
It can help us understand the human cost of conflict on a deeper level.
And that understanding can lead to action, whether it's supporting organizations that work for peace or simply engaging in thoughtful conversations about these issues. Every little bit counts.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that peace isn't just the absence of war.
Right.
It's an active process that requires empathy, dialogue, and a willingness to challenge injustice wherever we see it.
It's about using our voices and our actions to create a world where paintings like Gast become relics of a bygone era, a reminder of a past we've learned from and moved beyond.
And as we go about our day, let's carry that thought with us. Let's remember the power of art to inspire, to challenge, to remind us of our shared humanity. And let's use that reminder to fuel our own efforts to build a more peaceful future.